So following the clipboard protocol, having people go out and stand at the tracks, we wanted to achieve a few things. We wanted to try to get better data. If you're kind of there for like daytime for one day, you might there's a lot of day-to-day variation. So we wanted to be able to get kind of a longer coverage to get better data. Another thing that David talked about is the desire to better engage volunteers. So it's you know, if the busiest lines in Pittsburgh might have 2 or 3 unit trains a day, and when you divide that into 24 hours, that's a long time to wait. We also wanted to be able to count more DOT placard types, because as we've seen some places in Pittsburgh, it's not just the 1267s, the crude oil, that are the problem. And we also wanted to be able to go back and make some educated guesses about whether the car was empty, different cars were empty or full. So Jake Klingensmith, who's in the back of the room there with his hand up, did most of this work that I'm taking credit for up here. So we got together a particular camera after a lot of experimentation, something that worked in low light that could really freeze the motion on the train cars even in nighttime, and we put it in a waterproof enclosure. This is what it looks like. So Jake worked on this and a number of other people. Once a day, we would go to these cameras that are set up close to the trains and take the card out. So we'd take a day's worth of video out, and then Jake would run some software that he designed to take that 24 hours of video and turn it into 10 or 20 or 30 little tiny videos of each individual train coming by, which he'd then upload. And then at that point, instead of the volunteer standing by the track, the volunteer goes to a website and watches each of these trains come by. So in about 1 to 2 hours, you do a whole day of a camera at a particular space. So it's you get to see a lot more trains. It's a lot more interesting in that sense. This is what the system looks like to a volunteer. You'd see a train like this, and you'd be able to pause. If you look closely, if you're in the front row, you'll be able to read the 1267 there. We'll pause again. There's another 1267. And you can freeze frame and go back and forth if you can't quite make out what you're doing. But it's really easy to go through and count up a train. And in fact, with that 1 to 2 hours per day, we're able to capture not only the 1267s, but all the tanker cars, all the placards. This is a population density map of Allegheny County, of the Pittsburgh area. We're kind of in the middle of this, but you'll see, if I can bring the mouse up, okay, this is the most dense area of Pittsburgh, but you also see a lot of density close to, sorry, I went back, close to the rivers. This is where all the train tracks go, and we took these kind of 5 strategic locations. This is along the north of the Allegheny River. This is the line that goes straight through the middle of town. This third line goes also through the middle of town, but north-south instead of east-west. That goes by where we work. And then there are 2 that we got on the south of the Monongahela River. The first 3 are the most interesting. At the end of going and basically setting up these cameras for a week at each location, we had a monster spreadsheet. This is only one of the sites. And let me summarize some of the results. So Jake will be talking on Sunday, and he'll be able to talk more detail about the results and also be able to talk about how you might use a camera like this yourself. We recorded a total of 398 trains. We didn't count all the individual train cars, but the placarded tankers, we got over 8,000. Of that, there were close to 1,800 oil tankers moving in the full direction, which we use kind of both understanding where they were going, but also doing spot checks on the springs to see kind of how full the tanker is. We also saw a lot of 1075, which you might call propane or liquefied petroleum gas. So the two lines that carried the Bakken unit trains were that north side, north of Pittsburgh, where we got 20 trains 17 of which were the massive unit trains in that week. And then going through the middle of downtown, we saw mostly empties coming back, but there was one full as well. So all in all, we're seeing a total of maybe 18 of these unit trains per week coming through Pittsburgh. We did not see the big over 1 million gallon unit trains going to in any of the other 3 locations, at least in the full direction. We saw some empties. So this is the estimated total crude through Pittsburgh. It's about 50 to 60 million gallons a week, close to 3 billion gallons a year. And we estimate it's between 40 and 50% of the total amount of crude coming to the East Coast, according to the EIA estimates. Now here's the line that goes through the middle of town, north-south. It goes through a neighborhood called Oakland and Hazelwood. And it comes right by Carnegie Mellon, kind of our little, I'll show you a video in a second. Mostly what we see there is actually propane. So we see the 1075. And when I say propane, what you commonly call propane includes things like butane and some of the other kind of small hydrocarbons that you can still compress into a liquid without refrigerating it. That's mostly what we see. We also see some oil come by, and we believe, without a lot of direct evidence, we believe this is probably from the Marcellus. We think it's probably of local origin, because that makes sense in terms of the ratio of what you'd expect. You'd expect mostly the propane, butane, which is kind of what you might call the light ends if you're in the oil industry, or the wet part of the wet gas if you're in the gas industry. Excuse me. And see a lot less of the oil. Now there's a question earlier today about, can you keep the oil and the propane from being on the same train? Because that's a dangerous combination. Because as we know, you put propane or butane, you put it in a lighter, that stuff wants to come out, wants to squirt out, it wants to light up with just a spark. But I also want to make a point, and that this goes back to Matt's point about the volatility from earlier. What's really going on with these crude oil cars from shale oil is that you have a mix. So the propane and butane are already in there, right? It's like a soda bottle with, instead of you have the carbonated gas, the CO2, all bubbled and kind of under pressure. It wants to come out. That's the propane and butane inside the oil. So you just poke a hole in one of these tankers. It wants to squirt out. The oil wants to bubble out into the propane butane. So all it needs is a puncture and a light, and then you have the problem we've seen happen 10 times so far. And I want to make one other point. There's a lot of the propane coming by CMU right now, and one of the things that this train does as it goes through Oakland is it actually goes underground through a tunnel through some of the most populated areas. It goes under 10-story buildings, full of people, and I wonder how it is that we can prevent a small tanker truck carrying maybe 5,000 gallons of propane from going through our tunnels, but we can allow we've measured 1.4 million gallons of propane going through a tunnel. On the train. How?
For how long?
Sorry?
Cover a week or,
No, the 1.4 million is a single train.
I mean, is this, your statistics here, is that for 1 week, 1 day?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the statistics here are for 1 week. Correct. Yes. So this is our pet train line here coming by. This building on the left is where Jake and I work. And then finally, I want to talk about the Hazelwood derailment, which happened in May of 2015. It's the very same line that comes by CME. It's the same north-south line. We counted 90 tanker cars on it. Happily, the tanker cars did not derail. It was just the other cargo cars that derailed. We were able to. There was no confirmation about what was on the train. The railroad would not talk about it, but we were able to film 1075s, and we counted, using a drone, we counted about 90 tanker cars. Next steps, I encourage you to go to Jake's talk on Sunday. We have these 2 cameras. They're idle right now. If you want to borrow one of these things for your own local community to measure, we would love to support you and do that. Thanks.